Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I want to talk about kind of a nerdy quirk of mine. And for me, I feel like when it comes to my nerdiness, I have no guilty pleasure. That's kind of my quirk. Because I feel like when it comes to, you know, what people enjoy, like television-wise, movie-wise, and stuff like that, people have things they would label as their guilty pleasures. Like, I think it's supposed to be a thing of, like, when I think guilty pleasures, I think it's something you go like, it's not good, and I know it's trashy, but I enjoy it. The great example of that for people is like, oh, for a lot of people, their guilty pleasure is reality TV show, which obviously that reality TV, I should say, I don't know why I said reality TV, like, but reality TV shows, but that's something I can't really relate to because I'm not a big fan of reality TV in general, but that doesn't just apply to reality TV. There are plenty of shows that people will be like, oh, this is my guilty pleasure. I know it's not that great, but for whatever, I can't stop watching. Because like some people were like, oh yeah, I like watching TV shows I know are stupid and trash, and so, you know, those things will be labeled as guilty pleasures. But to me, that's such a foreign thing to me because I never look at anything as like, oh, a guilty pleasure. There's never anything that I'm like, oh, I can't. It almost make, because guilty pleasures are supposed to be kind of like a, oh, I'm kind of embarrassed that I'm secretly into this thing. It's like, I'm never embarrassed about anything I'm into. If I enjoy something, I enjoy it. I embrace it wholeheartedly. Like, I think that's the thing too. It's like when I watch things, whether it be a movie or TV show, I'm always fully invested. So what someone else might be like, oh, that's cringe, or oh, that's stupid, oh, that's trash. Like, I'm always invested. It's like, people are entitled to feel the way. Like, I don't expect everything to be for everyone. You know, there's plenty of things I'm into that not everyone's into. I'm just sure there's plenty of things that other people are into that just not my cup of tea. Once again, reality TV. But, you know, it's just an interesting thing to me because when certain things get labeled a guilty pleasure, I'm like, really, that's a guilty pleasure for you, but it's not. It's just like, I just wholeheartedly enjoy something. I guess, like I said, it's just, maybe this is my own misconception of a guilty pleasure, but, you know, it's just like, I've always had the thought that, like, oh, guilty pleasure is supposed to be something you're kind of embarrassed at. Like, oh, like, I'm kind of embarrassed to admit I'm into this. Like I said, I'm never embarrassed about anything. I mean, or maybe it's not that I have no guilty pleasures. Maybe just everything I watch is my guilty pleasure. So maybe I'm in a constant state of watching my guilty pleasures, not rather than not having any at all. I don't know. I mean, because when it comes to the conversation of guilty pleasures, obviously that can be such a wide range of things. Because I mean, it's like, yeah, you being into anime could be a guilty pleasure, or you being into specific animes could be a guilty pleasure. You know, like I said, I don't know. Like it's such an interesting thing to me that I realize like I never really necessarily correlate with it. Like I said, I never feel like this need to be like, oh, kind of embarrassed by what I'm into. But like I said, maybe you don't have to be embarrassed. Maybe even embracing what you're into is still like, oh, that's kind of a guilty pleasure. Like I said, maybe it's just my perception of what a guilty pleasure is. It's wrong, and I misunderstand what a guilty pleasure actually is. For better or for worse, I'm one of those type of people, like I said, who just enjoys what they enjoy. Like, I find things I can like in something, and I've always bring this up. Like, people can have their criticisms of certain things, but for me, it's like, yeah, that was a criticism for you, but it doesn't take away from my enjoyment of something. You know, it's just like I said, I'm always invested in whatever, you know, I watch, and I treat like my reviews of that same way. Like something I'm like, oh, that's stupid for someone. Like I said, it just for me, it's like I'm 100% invested, and I'm going to treat it like seriously. I'm going to be invested in characters. I'm going to be invested in the story. How no matter how other people might feel, it's stupid or trashy or cringe. You know, so like there's plenty of shows I watch that like I see that on the internet. It's like, oh, this show is cringe. You know, to each their own, right? So there's really no purpose to this video other than that. I just thought it was something interesting that was kind of floating in the back of my mind of like, yeah, just once again, just how I feel like I view things. And I don't want to make it seem like, oh, like I'm so special, like, oh, I'm the only one that feels like that. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are like, I actually have no guilty pleasures either. Like, no one's ever necessarily felt that way. Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about it because it's like, I don't really read enough books for there to be any books that I have any guilty pleasures about. Same thing with anime or manga. There's no video games I have any guilty pleasures. Like I said, I embrace everything that I play or watch or, you know, media that I end up consuming, you know, so whatever the case may be, it's just kind of a large tangent I'd love to get to know your thoughts about it. Like, do you have any guilty pleasures? Are there any things that you consume media-wise that you would consider kind of a guilty pleasure? I didn't even include it, but like I'm sure there's plenty of music that people are like, oh, I'm into this music, but I'd never admit to people I'm into this music for whatever reasons. Like I said, what are some of your guilty pleasures? Why do you consider them guilty pleasures? Is it just because, hey, not a lot of people enjoy this, or it's such a niche thing that it makes you feel like it's a guilty pleasure? Are you someone like me who has none at all? I'd love to get to know your thoughts about everything in the comments down below. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good